Happy Wednesday, my friends. This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. It is hump day. How's everyone's week going? Having a good week so far? Plugging along. We're going to do some Syracuse football today and get into some Syracuse basketball later in the week. And this is Syracuse Central. We focus on those two sports plus recruiting. And if you are so inclined, please hit that subscribe button. Tell all your friends, trying to build this community up. All right. So, want to give a shout out to freshman linebacker Antoine Delaurier, who was named a true freshman All-American by On3. On3 came out with its true freshman All-America team. Obviously includes guys on offense and defense. Demetrius Samuel, the fabulous Demetrius Samuel Jr., the fabulous cornerback / wide receiver, did not make the team, but he also, let's give him a shout out because he had a great year as well. But Delari made the cut. He's an All-American, freshman All-American, that is, and yeah, so he was good. I mean, obviously, look, the Syracuse defense had its shares of struggles this year. Is that an easy way to put it? A subtle way to put it? Their defense stunk. Okay? Offense wasn't great. Once Steve Angeli unfortunately went down either, and it was a bad season. Okay, whatever. But let's be positive here. Delare had a really good year. He did. I mean, he's not perfect, but he had 20 solo tackles, I think, 60 total. Just getting my notes here. 2.5 tackles for a loss, a sack, a couple forced fumbles, a couple pass breakups. So yeah, the Canadian product. He's from Montreal. He was really good. He was definitely one of the most productive freshman defensive players in the country, whether at linebacker or anywhere else. You could probably make the same case about Demetrius Samuel Jr. And look, we're gonna all put 2025 in the rearview mirror, so to speak, at least in terms of Syracuse. But 2026, I'm optimistic. They've got key guys coming back, whether it's Angeli, Samuel, Delaurier, Yassine Willis, the sophomore running back, a couple of defensive players. Well, Jamie Trimmel's a sophomore. He plays linebacker now, but he's played tight end. Freshman offensive lineman Byron Washington, redshirt sophomore defensive back. He's cornerback Chris Peel, the Georgia transfer, and that's just a couple. And then they've got this 2026 class at the prep level that's the highest in the modern era for Syracuse. And we'll see what they do in the portal. And their schedule, I don't think, well, it's kind of hard to talk about that right now because you don't know what their opponents' rosters are going to look like. But look, I just think the pieces are in place for Syracuse to have certainly a better season than they did in 2025. And, guys like Delare coming back, tremendous. And if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't like super, super highly ranked as a, let me just look this up. I should have looked this up before, sorry. But I don't even think he was 4 stars, which goes to show you that, and I use stars or, rankings for stuff on Syracuse Central and as, where I do my columns for Inside the Lighthouse, but they're not everything. So yeah, he was a 3-star, at least according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. So he was great. He was great. And a huge congrats to him. And hopefully the defense will be better. As we mentioned, they've got a new defensive coordinator coming in. Fran Brown did several guys aren't being retained. Elijah Robinson, the chatter over the weekend is that he was headed to LSU. But then I saw something on Monday that Nebraska might also be in the mix. I don't know if Syracuse is trying to retain him. He was demoted, quote unquote, from defensive coordinator to co-defensive coordinator and defensive line coach. And for me personally, I would love to see him come back. I mean, I just feel like he'd be more in his element focusing on the defensive line and then focusing on recruiting and not the play calling and all that, because obviously that was a struggle. So I'd love to see him come back. I don't know. I hope on a personal level that there's no, tension between him and Fran Brown because they grew up in Camden, New Jersey together. They're like childhood friends. So, friendship and that sort of thing to me will always be more important than sports and business. But I get it. It's a business. And I respect Fran Brown for demoting, quote unquote, his good friend because, he's doing what's best for the program, even if it's not, something he loved doing personally. So we'll see about Elijah Robinson, but I'm psyched about this new DC from Toledo. I'll get in them some more on Syracuse Central coming up. But yeah, Delare, great season. Congrats to him. All right, so we mentioned earlier in the week about Malachi James, the sophomore running back slash return man who was injured for much of the season, announcing that he will enter the transfer portal. And as I've talked about on Syracuse Central, the transfer portal window for Division One, which FBS, FCS, is January 2nd to January 16th. So these guys are announcing this now. They're not entering it now, but they're announcing it now. So and I get that the Syracuse's season is over. But a couple other guys also announced, and there could be even more by the time in between when I tape this and when it ran. Certainly a little gap there, but guys that have announced that they plan to or will enter the portal. Redshirt freshman defensive back Ivan McDaniels, sophomore linebacker Caden Brown, who his dad, I believe, played for, I don't believe, I know, he played for Syracuse in the late 1980s, so that's kind of a bummer. Redshirt senior linebacker Derek McDonald, who was injured pretty much, if not all of this year, most of this year. Did he play it all this year? I'm just putting this up. Oh, no, he played in a couple games. I'm sorry. He played in the first 4 games. Sorry. And then redshirt senior defensive lineman, although I think he also plays a little tight end, Chase Simmons. So, that's 5 that we know of for sure. And again, there could be some more, coming up. Well, there will be more coming up. And look, maybe I'm a little pragmatic or just kind of I focus on kindness, so to speak. I at least try to, I always wish Syracuse players that transfer out well, whether they were forced to transfer or they transferred of their own choosing. And even sometimes if it doesn't settle right, the whole Trevor Pena thing last year in Penn State and NIL money and all, whatever, I don't know, some fans on social media, the Loud House channels I run, oh, if someone transfers, that person's dead to me and I don't want screw them and I hope they were terrible. I don't know. If they play for a team that plays Syracuse, I'm not rooting for that other team. I'm rooting for my alma mater. But especially these days with the transfer portal explosion the last few years after the NCAA, enabled guys to transfer without having to sit out a year. I shouldn't say guys, college athletes. But obviously we focus on football and basketball here. It just happens. Guys are coming in, guys are leaving, whatever. Wish them well, move on. Do I think any of those guys transferring, the guys I named, are huge losses? I don't want to be mean about it, but not McDonald was good last year, but he lost his starting job and was injured, and a lot of those other guys just didn't get a lot of time. Chase Simmons, he's a veteran player, but these aren't overly concerning to me, and I mean that in a respectful way. But we'll see what happens coming up. More guys are going to announce, and then obviously come January 2nd, the day after my birthday, by the way, January 1st is my birthday. We're going to see more guys going in, and we'll see what Syracuse does in the portal. But like I said, wishing these guys well. All right, so this whole Notre Dame thing with the CFP and the ACC, I don't want to harp on it forever, but I kind of feel like harping on it forever because it's freaking ridiculous. First of all, how do I put this? Look, I know that Notre Dame is a big brand. In football, are they the biggest brand? They're an independent and have a an exclusive television deal with NBC and its affiliates. So in football, they're a huge brand, and a lot of other sports, obviously men's basketball, women's basketball, etc. They're in the ACC, and certainly when there's been these rounds of conference realignment, the chatter always is, well, what is Notre Dame going to do in football? And look, if Notre Dame wants to stay independent and make that bank, good for them. But that also means that they don't get into a conference championship game and they don't get an automatic bid. So, it works both ways. But their AD, He's like on this rampage. Like, let me see some of the quotes. One of the quotes, this is the best. And again, I know this doesn't, well, it does, and it does talk about Syracuse a little bit because he talks about their schedule. Notre Dame AD Pete Bavacchia, we were shocked, mystified, and this is regarding not getting to the CFP. We were shocked, mystified what happened Sunday. We had one of the most dominant 10-game runs in the history of college football. Another quote, the ultimate gut punch that this team doesn't get to play for a national championship. Another quote, what we were surprised and disappointed was how the ACC went on a social media campaign attacking our program. Quote, that campaign has created damage between Notre Dame and the ACC. I'm not going to shy away from that, and that's not just me speaking. It's a lot more people, it's a lot more people more important at this university than me that feel the same. It has done some real damage. There ain't a lot of people from an athletic standpoint that are more powerful or important than him, obviously, other than whether it's the board of trustees or the president or chancellor or whatever. There was one other quote I wanted to get. Notre Dame AD. He talked about damage was done but can be repaired. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. He had one other quote, and I'm obviously paraphrasing here. I just can't find it right now, where he in essence said that, there's damage done to the relationship, permanent damage, but it can be repaired, so to speak. And then you see all this nonsense on Twitter and stuff, whether it's from people that know a lot or fake accounts or people that pretend to be insiders, and I'm not pretending. The only thing I'm even quasi in the know about is Syracuse, so this is way beyond my scope. But talking about how Notre Dame's going to leave the ACC in all sports and go to the Big Ten or whatever, or the SEC, I guess that would be the only two places they go. First of all, talking about the dominant run, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They played I gotta look this up. This is ridiculous. First of all, they obviously played and kicked Syracuse butt. We know that, 70-7. And, on the one hand, they can only control what they can control. And the players go out and play the teams that the brass schedule them for, and they can't do anything about their opponents and how good they are or not good they are. The players, that is. But look who they played. Purdue, 2-10. Arkansas, 2-10. Boise State's a group of 5. NC State, 7-5. Southern Cal, 9-3. Boston College, 2-10. Navy, another group of 5. Pitt, 8-4. Syracuse, 3-9. Stanford, 4-8. Now, granted, Notre Dame destroyed most of those teams. Just absolutely pummeled them. So it was dominant from that standpoint. But, dude, come on, man. You're sitting there, puffing yourself out because you didn't get in. You're 10-2. Your two best shots at, a really, really high, quality win were the first 2 weeks of the season against Miami and Texas A&M, both teams that are in it. And you lost both those games. And, of course, Notre Dame is one of the best 12 teams right now. That doesn't mean they're in the playoff because of the way the system is. And they're better than Tulane. They're better than JMU. Some people say they should have gotten in over Miami or Alabama or whoever the hell's. But the whole thing about this, social media, campaign, the ACC, and yes. But, I don't look at it that, and drop me comments and let me know what you think. I don't look at it that, the ACC was, smearing Notre Dame because it's Notre Dame. They're smearing Notre Dame because they're trying to pump up Miami, and Miami's best win is against Notre Dame. If Miami had beaten at the beginning of the season, let's say another non-conference, let's say they played freaking, I don't know, Oregon or Oklahoma, a good, high-quality team from another conference. The ACC, with this social media campaign would have been running clips or show replay or whatever, focused in on Miami beating that other team. It just so happened it was Notre Dame this year. So get over yourself. All this public crybaby nonsense, oh God, I'm not, I know some people are oh, Notre Dame's pretentious. I'm not, dude, I love Rudy, the movie Rudy with Sean Astin back in the day. Shout out to Jon Favreau. Robert Prosky. God, I could go on and on. Vince Vaughn, duh. Ned Beatty. Like, so I don't hate on Notre Dame. Some people might think they're a little, again, kind of pretentious, whether it's the school itself or because they have their own NBC, for they're an independent football. Like, I don't care about that. If you want to be an independent football and make bank, good for you. But don't cry because you didn't have a conference championship game to win and get in automatically. And granted, Alabama lost theirs bad and they still got in. But like, we're splitting hairs over this. But like, I don't know. I'm going off on a rant here, and you can tell me I'm an idiot and tell me to shut up about it. It just, when I saw those quotes on Tuesday about the historic run and the smear like, I was just like, dude, really, man? Really? All right, I'm gonna move on, get off my high horse here. And again, I kind of like when I was a kid. I mean, I obviously like Syracuse and ended up going to Syracuse, but like, I was huge into college football and basketball dating back to when I was a kid, like in the mid '80s. And for some reason, one of my favorite teams on the football side was Southern Cal. But I remember some of the epic battles they had with Notre Dame. It's a great non-conference series, so like, I always kind of root for Notre Dame, like whatever. But just AD looks to me like a dope. Looks like a dope. Like, if you wanna complain outwardly, publicly about not getting in, fine. But like, all this sour grapes with the ACC, do that crap in behind closed doors. You want to leave the ACC and other sports, like, he's like on this like high horse. Like, it just I feel like it's being done the wrong way, and it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not saying like the ACC was like amazing either, but again, they weren't crapping on Notre Dame because it's Notre Dame. They know full well how important Notre Dame is for all these other sports. Plus, Notre Dame plays a lot of ACC teams in football. So, like, they were just pumping up Miami, and Miami beat Notre Dame in a non-conference game. And that was probably, like, the biggest thing about why Miami got in and Notre Dame didn't. And as I always love to talk about, and I'm on other people's podcasts, my guy Jackson Holzer, Locked On, if you want to get in, just win more games. Win more games. Win more games. Beat Miami. Beat Texas A&M. Yeah, you did what you needed to do those other 10 games, but you lost to Miami, and you had identical freaking records. I get it. Maybe you're playing better football right now than Alabama or Miami, but you lost to Miami. Okay. I'm done. All right, we're going to get some viewer comments here because y'all are awesome. I really appreciate y'all for like doing comments, again, good or negative. And so my man Peace Love 5873, this is when I was talking about Malachi James, and James did he mentioned in his social media post, made it sound like he wanted to stay, but circumstances beyond his control made it best for him to go elsewhere, blah blah blah. And Peace Love 5873, he says, read into it, homie. And then he mentions that quote from James. Given what you said about the Coach Fran omission, this sounds to me like maybe his scholarship wasn't guaranteed going forward. Is Fran churning the bottom of the roster to bring in better athletes? It sounded like he initiated the conversations with those other 2026 incoming freshmen that all decommitted the same night right before the signing period. So yeah, my man, Peace. It's and thanks for always commenting. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the support. I mean, Coach Brown and other they have to have these conversations, and sometimes they tell people that, it kind of stinks if like it's one thing if you're like an incoming freshman, like you're still in high school, and they say, okay, well, based on our roster makeup, we're going to have to look into the portal more, and you're not going to have a scholarship. And so that's why they decommitted. And I'm talking about high school process. And that still stinks because it's right before early signing period. But I think it's like a little bit of a different animal to me when I look at guys that are already on the team, and if like they're told they won't have a scholarship for the next season. Obviously if there's something, academic issue or behave, like something beyond the field, like that kind of stinks though. But yeah, it sounded like that with Malachi James for sure. And it's a bummer because that dude's just a track star and just crazy fast, and I just feel like we never got to see his full potential, and it just happens sometimes. So yeah, I feel you, Peace Love. I feel you. And then he also talked about Nick Williams, head into Florida State, and uh, does seem we made a smart hire at DC. Totally agree about that. Still wish we could have kept Erob. Well, again, and when I was taping this, it looked like maybe LSU wasn't going to happen for him. Maybe it's Nebraska. Maybe he comes back. And yeah, like Nick Williams, like he's got crazy, enthusiasm. He's a really good recruiter. So is Erob. But like, if I'm being honest, and so is Fran Brown, it's not like the defense was really good this year. And like obviously last year, Fidel Diggs, if we're talking about edge rushers, yeah, but like were the edge rushers really good this year? I mean, so I'm not saying I wouldn't want to keep Nick Williams and or Erob. And again, from a recruiting standpoint, they're both really good. But I think Fran Brown has just realized, what worked in 2024 didn't work in 2025, and he's kind of just reassessing things, and that happens. And so, and then when you got a new defensive coordinator coming in, obviously that could, and then that defensive coordinator maybe will bring some people, assistants that could cause guys to go into the portal or whatever. It's the nature of the game. All right, so Knowles gifted 6333. The ACC should have had Virginia, Miami in the conference championship. A four-way tie for second place should have went to the highest ranked playoff team, which would have been Miami. Notre Dame should join a conference if they want the possibility of the automatic bid. Notre Dame can cry me a river. Well said on the end. Heck yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, Notre Dame was the runner-up to Ohio State in the CFP title game last year. But if they want to, have a potential of just being guaranteed that they could get in, they should join a conference. Yeah, all the tiebreakers for the ACC thing are silly. It would have been nice to have a Virginia-Miami championship game, because then the winner of that would have only had 2 losses and would have been one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions and would have gotten in, and all the speculation would have been a moot point. And then Kerry Green 1079 says Notre Dame should have been selected over Alabama and arguably even Oklahoma too. Miami deserved a bid also for sure. Yeah, I mean, look, Alabama has 3 losses. Part of it is because they played in a championship game. And it's like, do you penalize teams a lot for losing in a title game because they had a good regular season and got into it? Or do you just like focus more on rewarding them if they win it? And obviously, if they win it, they're in anyway. If they're one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions, like I don't know. Like Oklahoma beat Texas. I can't remember who beat who, especially in the SEC. They all have, except for Alabama, they all have 2 losses. It's like you're splitting hairs. Like who has the best wins? Who had the best losses? The worst losses? I don't know. Okay, Raga Bop Hepcat. That's an awesome name, by the way. A CFP bracket of less than 16 teams is bull squat. And I'm paraphrasing that last word. And ideally, it needs to be twice that size, includes spots from lesser conference champions, North Dakota State, where all viable competitive programs have a chance to compete and earn a spot in the tournament. One other problem the NCAA has continually failed to address in the postseason, poaching of coaches before the bowl season, and the CFP has played out. Yeah, I mean, all this move the signing period for coaches to mid-January after the college football playoff national champion has been crowned. I mean, that's like the ongoing, like one of the big hiccups is just the calendar, inclusive of the transfer portal, just like, recruiting, coaching stuff. Like, it's just a mess. Yeah, and it stinks that, a guy leaves his school when, his team is in the CFP. Or, yeah, like all these coaches moving around, like now when there's still bowl games, although bowl games are like whatever at this point. I don't know what the solution is, because I think I'm fine. We'll see how it plays out. I think I'm fine with the one-time only transfer portal window being January 2nd to the 16th. It used to be 1 in December and then 1 in the spring. And I'm fine with it being 1. But it's like, if you make coaches who want to move to a different program wait until January at some point. I mean, it's obviously got to line up with the portal, but then it just nothing. There's no like perfect solution, I guess, is the bottom line. And there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me, although maybe not at the NCAA, because I think it's the most incompetent organization ever. But there's people out there that could probably. I think Nick Saban should just be like the commissioner and figure it out. It's a mess. It is. It is. So we'll see. Let's see. Tim Otundi says you talked about bringing Notre Dame is fairly relevant and the AD lashing out, and this was on yesterday's show. Now, if there are any talks about Notre Dame joining a league, ACC will probably most certainly be excluded from that conversation. Notre Dame feels as though the ACC pushed real hard to have Miami jump over Notre Dame for that playoff spot. Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame getting into a conference is their best kind of consistent chance to be in the playoff, because they're presumably they win that conference, they're going to be one of the 5 highest ranked. Although the models are going to be are going to be likely changing after this season or in the future anyway for the CFP, that is. I didn't personally think that if Notre Dame ever joined a conference full time that it would be the ACC anyway. I mean, you would think that would be the most reasonable thing to do given how many other sports with the Fighting Irish play in the ACC. But yes, certainly this kind of stuff the last few days doesn't help things. But again, I don't feel like the ACC was like trashing Notre Dame to pump up Miami. They were just pumping up Miami, and Miami happened to beat Notre Dame. And then anyway, Mark P. 7262 writes, I think Notre Dame got hosed by the human element. That said, I'll probably root for Indiana and the G5 schools, or I'll just ignore football and watch basketball. Q rant. My man Mark. That's great. Yeah, so... And then I wrote back that I think it would be cool if Indiana won it all, because I like Kurt Cignetti, and what he's done at Indiana over the last years has been tremendous. And Mark wrote, yeah, it's kind of hard to root for Indiana just given the Indiana-Syracuse 87 basketball title game. But, yeah, I mean, I don't personally think Notre Dame got hosed. I'm not saying that if they were in, I'd be fine with that too. Just like I'd be fine with Vanderbilt was in, or even in Texas. Or like, I do think they should just make it at least 16. So, but then again, if you have 16, like, it's still going to be, someone's still going to get hosed. Just like we talk about the NCAA tournament and men's and women's basketball. It's 68 teams, and we talk about teams getting hosed. So, I don't know. What do you think? I'll leave it at this. What would you all like the CFP to be in terms of number of teams? Do we get, auto bids from all the Power Four leagues? Like how many mid-major or group of five, whatever you call it, should get in, or it should just be the top 16 ranked teams or whatever? I don't know. I don't have the answer, but it's made for some fun drama, and it's fun to talk about. Hopefully the Notre Dame AD will say more silly things that I'll bring up on the show, even though it doesn't have a lot to do with Syracuse, but it does, because Syracuse is in the ACC, and if Notre Dame were to leave the ACC and other sports, given that Florida State and Clemson and all the lawsuits in the past, like, that's something to monitor. It is. Plus, he's just saying silly things. All right, that's going to do it for today's edition of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. I'm your host, Neil Adler. Please subscribe if you feel so inclined. And as always, drop me comments about what you're looking to hear about and what you like and what you don't like. I really appreciate your support. We'll get into some Syracuse basketball on Thursday as the Orange have a game coming up against St. Joseph's. Have a great rest of your hump day. Much love. Take care.